Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here with first of many PTS patch note update videos. We're talking about the Elder Scrolls Online and of course the High Isle chapter, which has come out today on the public test server. We're diving through all these notes. Main thing you need to know is there are some absolutely great class balance changes that have hit the PTS. A lot of these are making the 6 classes of the Elder Scrolls Online stronger, giving them more options, greater abilities. Some of these I even asked for in my last video talking about hybrid builds. So I'm very excited to dive into all of these with you guys. Let's go ahead and start with the Dragonknight class, which didn't get a whole lot of changes actually. They're probably one of the classes with the fewest amount of changes in this patch. But starting with Ardent Flame skill line and Engulfing Flames, this actually got a bit of a nerf. They reduced the flame damage taken bonus on Engulfing Flames down to 6% from 10%. So keep that in mind if you are using Engulfing Flames. We did get a bit of a buff though in Draconic Power on Choking Talons. This morph had its cost reduced down to about 3,500 magicka, and a nice buff actually I think on Hardened Armor. I usually don't use this morph because the damage shield just hasn't been that strong, but it is getting buffed this patch. So greater shield size on Hardened Armor by 24%. You might consider using it if you are going for a damage shield build. Finally, Earthen Heart Obsidian Shard. The Fragmented Shield morph here is getting increased duration for major mending, so that's going to be up to 6.6 seconds at base. That's up from 5 seconds. That will be higher, though, when you consider Eternal Mountain passive, so that may be something like 8 seconds. I'm not sure exactly the math on that. I'll have to double check. But it's going to be nice for healing on your Dragonknight. Now moving on to the Necromancer class changes, and a lot of good stuff here, actually. I think you're going to like this if you have a Necromancer. Starting in the Gravelord skill line, we have Mystic Siphon. This morph now increases your health, magicka, and stamina recoveries by up to 150 while it's active. So an extra 150 recovery to all your resources there. So I think if we do the math on that, you should still get about 1,200 magicka over the duration, but you're also getting, about 1,200 or so health and stamina as well. So kind of a nice buff, I think, for that particular ability. I'm assuming this still does damage as well. And then the Bone Tyrant skill line, we got 2 buffs here for Bone Armor. First of all, the Beckoning Armor morph. This is the one that pulls enemies to you. This morph now attempts to pull valid targets once every 2 seconds, up from once every 3 seconds. So a little bit quicker on the target pulls there, which is nice. And then this I am definitely going to check out. So Ruinous Scythe, I believe that's the stamina morph. This morph now deals bleed damage rather than physical damage, okay? So the second effect here is actually pretty unique. It's going to apply the hemorrhaging status effect when you deal damage. And this is an AoE effect as well. It's an AoE damage skill. So I believe that reduces the target's total health by maybe 10%. So this is going to be quite nice for like tanks to debuff AoE enemies, in the area. I like that. It definitely makes the skill more unique, which is what we want with our morphs. And also this morph now sets all enemies off balance on hit rather than every 3rd cast. So you have 3 good buffs for this single ability. That's looking really juicy. A couple more buffs here for the Necro class. So Hexproof reduced the cost of the morph, so that's good. And then Restoring Siphon is going to be similar to Mystic Siphon. It now increases your health, magicka, and stamina recovery by up to 150 instead of just stamina restoring. So I imagine you can get both. You've always been able to run both siphons at the same time. So if you're running both of those, Mystic Siphon and Mortal Coil, that's 300 recovery, 300 base recovery. And that's probably going to stack with all of your other buffs for recovery from like potions and other things like that. So, I don't think sustain was really a big issue on Necromancer, but running these 2 buffs now should never be an issue if you're playing a Necro. So that's kind of cool for that particular class. Now, moving on to Nightblade. And I was actually pretty surprised by this. Some very powerful buffs here. So let's check it out. First of all, mark targets. Got an increased duration to 60 seconds, up from 30. That's actually pretty nice. Here's a big one, though. Ambush. So this is the stamina morph of Teleport Strike. They increase the duration of the Empower buff, so that increases your light and heavy attack damage, I believe, up to 10 seconds now, up from 3. But here's the big one. This morph now also grants Minor Berserk for its duration. It used to be only Wardens had... Actually, if you go way back, Nightblades used to have Minor Berserk on Grim Focus, They lost it for quite a few patches, but now it's back on the ambush morph. So that is quite nice. Remember, with the hybridization that you have now in the Elder Scrolls Online, you can run ambush on a Magicka or a Stamina Nightblade. Shouldn't really matter, but you'll have a nice option now for getting this buff on your Nightblade build. Also, I was surprised to see this. Refreshing Path got a really nice buff. This morph now also grants minor endurance and minor intellect for 4 seconds each tick. So those are those 2 minor recovery buffs for stamina and Magicka recovery. That's really good. Surprise Attack got a fix. And then here's another interesting change. So a lot of buffs here for Nightblades. Drain Power, they increase the duration of Major Brutality and Sorcery. So that's that AoE damage skill, Sap Essence or Power Extraction. But look at the Power Extraction morph here. This morph now also grants the caster Minor Courage for 30 seconds upon dealing damage. So Minor Courage is a weapon damage and spell damage buff. But that's different from Major Brutality and Major Sorcery. I think Minor Courage gives you like 200-something weapon and spell damage, and I don't think any other class actually has this skill, in their class toolkit. This buff is usually reserved for item sets and procs and things like that. So pretty interesting that Nightblades now get Minor Courage. It looks like it's just for the caster. It would be pretty interesting if they made this like a group Minor Courage for some group utility, but for now, getting this on your Nightblade, that's really cool. More damage, right? You get Minor Berserk and more weapon and spell damage on Nightblades this patch. Pretty crazy. And then just does fix on Soul Shred. So let's move to Sorcerer. And you guys, I'm super surprised by this because I actually mentioned this in my last video, again, where I was talking about hybrid balance and what classes can do what in terms of hybrids. Sorcerer was actually sort of the lowest on my list. Well, second next to Necromancer, but I ranked Sorcerer a bit lower because of Crystal Fragments, and you could only really use it on Magicka builds. I don't know if they were listening to me. Probably not. They probably were just planning this the whole time. But check out this buff. This morph now activates on any non-ultimate active ability cast rather than only Magicka costing abilities. So that is pretty awesome. You can now use Crystal Frags on a Stamsorc, on a Hybrid Sorcerer, on the Sorcerer Tank, Sorcerer Healer, whatever. Any type of Sorcerer build has access to the Crystal Frags morph, which is really, really nice. Also, slight buff here to Crystal Weapon if you're considering this. This is the stamina morph of this skill. It now causes your next 2 light or heavy attacks to deal bonus damage instead of just the 1 attack. So that's interesting as well. The Atronach Ultimate, this area of effect damage now always applies Concussed. So that's a little buff there. Fix an issue with Boundless Storm, and then Endless Fury got a cost reduction. That's good. And here's another interesting change, sort of going with that hybrid feel. So Energy Overload, that's the ultimate here. This morph now restores both Magicka and Stamina rather than just Magicka. So that's really good for Sorcerer hybrids or Stamina Sorcerers who want to make use of the Overload, Energy Overload morph. Really nice. Let's move on to Templar. Not much new here, just a couple of small changes. So Blazing Shield, they increased the radius on this. Dawn's Wrath and Backlash and Purifying Light, these got a slight cost increase. While Power of the Light, that's the Stamina morph, got a cost reduction. Nice cost reduction, actually. That's good for stamina builds. And Living Dark did get a change here. Now, I believe this is going to be sort of like a nerf. I don't use this skill that much. I have to ask Delty about this. I know he uses this a lot. This morph's heal no longer scales with stats and instead heals for a base 2,000 health. So I'm guessing if your stats were really high, this might be a nerf. But if your stats were not as high, this may be the same or slightly better. So they're taking away some of the insane values of healing with Living Dark. So just keep that in mind. Deltia, if you're using that skill next patch, better check that out. Solar Flare reduced the cost down slightly. And a change here for Practiced Incantation. This is an AoE healing skill. It now allows you to move at reduced rate while channeling rather than being unable to move at all. This is the ultimate, right? I believe that's the ultimate. Interesting. All right, Warden's got an interesting mix here. I feel like Warden's kind of got a mixed bag this patch. They've been getting buffed. Last patch, they got some really good buffs, and now they're getting kind of mixed buffs and nerfs, at least as far as what I'm seeing. Let's check out this buff though first. So Wild Guardian is the bear ultimate. This was like the physical damage morph. It's now going to do more damage, so 10% more damage up from 5%. That's going to make it more comparable. It should deal more damage. It's supposed to be the damaging morph. But the other morph, Eternal Guardian, previously did more damage because of the piercing magic passive. So this should make them at least equal, if not a little bit more damage for Wild Guardian, it looks like. And it's now going to convert to bleed damage instead of physical damage. Also going to apply that hemorrhaging status effect, which is going to be pretty strong as well. So I think Wild Guardian got a nice buff this patch, especially if you're stamina focused. If you have buffs to bleed damage, you may like this morph a little bit more now. Here's an interesting change as well. So Deep Fissure, this is the Magicka morph of Scorch. This morph now also applies Minor Breach to enemies hit for the duration. So it says also applies. Now this skill also applies Major Breach. So this is going to apply both Major Breach and Minor Breach. And remember, this is an AoE effect. It's sort of a long and kind of wide AoE rectangle in front of you as the caster. This is going to be really nice for tanks because you can basically, it's like a Pierce Armor in an AoE, right? Because you're getting both of the main debuffs, Major Breach and Minor Breach at the same time. That's actually really cool for Wardens. Corrupting Pollen got a new effect here, so Minor Cowardice is going to help it gain some viability in PvE. And then here's where we get into some nerfs. So Arctic Blast, this feels more like a nerf. It's going to require 5 damage ticks in order to stun. That's up from the previous 3 ticks, so keep that in mind if you're using that for your stun. The developer comment here is talking about it was too offensive in nature. Maybe it was supposed to be more of a defensive skill. I'm not sure exactly, but you will need up to 5 ticks here to get the stun on Arctic Blast. It looks like they've tried to balance that a little bit, so they actually added a stun to Crystallized Slab. So this is kind of interesting, maybe a little bit awkward. Let me know what you think in the comment section if you play lots of the Warden class. So Crystallized Slab now stuns the target upon dealing damage. So for the Masters of Ice, this is the developer comment, Wardens were lacking a lot of hard control, so like a hard CC or stun. Without giving them something too over the top to make them more oppressive to melee attackers, they wanted to give them a ranged stun option, okay? But keep in mind, this is a defensive stun, right? So the enemy has to attack you and your shield in order to get stunned. So it's kind of like that Sorcerer stun back in the day, the prison skill. It's going to be a nice defensive stun for sure, but it's not adding too much to the offensive kit, which is unfortunate, I think. Let's see, what else? Expansive Frost Cloak got a range buff. That's a huge range. Wow, that's a big range. And then Northern Storm, this is actually pretty good, I think, for hybrids. So this is one of your Sleet Storm ultimate morphs. This morph now grants 300 weapon and spell damage for 30 seconds. And that's instead of the max Magicka boost. So definitely better for hybrids, for Stamina Wardens, and opening this up to more playstyles. I like that one. So, I mean, that's it as far as the class changes. That's what I wanted to focus on for this video. I think there's some really good stuff here, but let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Were you surprised by any of this? Do you think, did your class get overlooked? Or are you looking forward to some of these buffs coming up in the next patch? Let me know what you think down in the comments section. If you like this video, make sure to like it and get ready because there's many more videos to come. Hey everybody, just a quick note that we are continuing to update our members-only video library right here on YouTube. So if you're looking for a way to support the channel, you can click on that join button down below for more information. We have different tiers of membership with lots of great rewards. Everything from early access to videos as well as members-only videos and guides, including many unique off-meta builds you're not going to see anywhere else, like our 10,000 plus weapon damage Stamina Templar build, the Warlord. This is a super easy setup, great for solo or group content, and is a lot of fun to play. So if that sounds good to you, just click on that join button down below for more information. We'll also have a link in the description to our members page over on the website that lists all the members-only builds you have access to right here on HTM as a channel member. Big shout out to all our current members, and thank you all so much for your support. Thanks to all of you for watching this video. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.